embarrassing part about it was I looked at my reel and I was like, wow, in this time, like I don't, I can update it, but sadly, like I haven't done anything that's that much more impressive than what I did back then,
Mm, mm.
um, and it was kind of eye opening. And I also, then I got digging further and I was looking back and I was at my work and I was like, man, I can't even, I don't even know what I would send this person if they said, hey, like, what's like your thing? What is like your creative piece? Like, what's your, a representation of your work?
Finally got this going. And this is a conversation we've had multiple times throughout our long friendship. For those of you that are listening, Jason is one of my closest and longest friends I've had. He is, I call him the MVP. He knows this is the nickname. When we do projects together, he shows up, is 110% dedicated, just fantastic. We've been in high school together. I think next to Nate and Brian, you're like my longest standing friend. And
Same.
we have become husbands. We have become fathers. We've seen each other grow. We've seen each other in extremely hard times. We've lost close friends. We've gained incredible friends. We've had some insane life experiences. And we've just had a lot of time together, intense collaborative time and relaxing, wonderful friendship time. We just have a lot of mileage. And I coerced him to come on the podcast because we've had so many of these conversations and we're going to go deep into it today. I know Jay's a little bit nervous about this, which I'm so proud of him. Thank you for allowing me to force you into doing this. I think it'll help you. But I'm going to let you talk, obviously. I just wanted to introduce you. He's just one of my favorite human beings, and I mean that sincerely. If there's ever a time where I'm hitting a rock bottom or a place where I need some sort of mental clarity or some sound advice, which is often, Jay knows this, I can always call him or text him, and he's just been a phenomenal person in my life, and I love him so much, and I'm so glad that he's here, and I'm so glad that he's sharing his journey with you all, because I think you're going to find a lot of yourself in this conversation. So, Jay, hello.
Yes, you did. Yeah, I appreciate you coercing me to do this. You're right that we've had this conversation many times, and over our long friendship, and I'm appreciative, and I feel the same way. For all the support you've given me, and that's kind of what led to this too. Is that you've been such an inspiration to me throughout my life and my career, and I think part of the consistent through line of our conversations is what comes up is that I'm maybe not heading in the direction that I'd like to head. And while I've been a part of and thankfully been able to see so much of your success, I sit here and wonder. I'm like, wow, like Ash is showing me it's possible, in so many ways. And while I've been fortunate enough to just work as a creative professional, I still, there are times where I feel like, wow, I mean, I think I could be doing so much more. So that is why I'm here. That's why I feel like there are people out there that can relate, and I know some people personally that can relate, and I'm looking to you to hopefully give me some guidance and support, and maybe you can extract something and figure out some of the reasons why, I'm at this stage.
I love it. This is yeah, absolutely. You know that my love language is to give purpose and to give help. And it's one of the things that is the foundation of a great friendship. And this is, I find that we've had these conversations in many different forms. They take different faces, but as we evolve and grow through life, but you're on the cycle of your calling. That's what I call it. It's the calling time. If we've talked about this before, but I had the calling and I still have it continually. I'm a little bit lost on certain things now, which is doing this with you is also helping me, of course, but when you have the calling, it's this thing. And maybe we should discuss what that feeling is, that nagging feeling, that sleepless laying in bed at night while everybody's sleeping. I don't know what it's like for you, but we should start to describe it. My goal with this conversation is to remove as many abstractions and start to really dig into the reasons why, and then try to take all that knowledge and perspective and then turn it into actionable results potentially.
Yeah, well, for me, I've never lacked the drive or creative inspiration. I mean, I am constantly coming up with ideas and thinking of, ways to execute them. And I have been able to, create work that, I am proud of. But the thing is that for me, while I stay up and I come up with so many different potential projects and creative aspirations, I don't execute them in the same way that I execute, potentially commercial work or work that I consider something that, needs to get done. And that's where I worry that I don't have that same need to, create these passion projects or these, creative ideas that you might have. And that's something that I've admired from you, is that, there's no difference between something that is client work and pays the bills and something that you are just driven to do. And I make like a clear distinction, and I don't know if that's a crutch or just an excuse, but a lot of times it stops me from making that film or making that sketch or that short, whatever it is. I don't have trouble staying up all night and thinking about it and getting excited about it, and even like doing the research and writing. But it is like in the execution and the completion part. I thought that over time I can just like work my way through it, but working hard never got me to where, I wanted to be, honestly.
We've had this talk many times about the lie of hard work. I don't say it's a lie. I think that we live in a different time where hard work doesn't always equate to success. I think working smart is probably the trick, is understanding where you put your time and effort. Because you could be let's use a car as an analogy. You could be pedal to the metal, but you could just be sitting in mud. Pedal to the metal. I'm going fast, but you're just digging a deeper hole and you're not going anywhere. Where somebody on the road is doing pedal to the metal and they're going way past you, obviously. And I think that's just a matter of how to effectively put your energy where it should be. And this is something we're going to dig into, which is understanding what is your freeway, what is your road, knowing what that feeling is. If you drive on a dirt road without pavement, it's horrible, it's rocky. If you do a job that you're not passionate about with a bad client, so on and so forth, you've enabled this behavior, so on, this and that, it's rocky, it doesn't feel right. But if you're with a client that works great, smooth, and there's this great transition, you're smooth with it. So the trick, I think, is understanding. There's a bunch, I've been writing down notes, but
yeah,
we'll go back to the calling. But have you identified when you're working smarter and when you're working harder? Have you identified that?
I have. I mean, in retrospect, I like after the fact, a lot of times I do look back and I, wow, like, uh, I could have been using my time better for sure. And, that sometimes it leads to change, but a lot of times, I just get in the thick of it and my head is down and I'm not looking up to be like, all right, am I in the right spot? Am I using my time wisely? Because I feel like I am heading in the right direction per se, but it's not in the most efficient way, I guess. Yeah, I mean, one thing like kind of to start broadly, but uh, to try and still be like to get us somewhere specific. Recently I've been doing creative work for over 10
Since I've
years or
known you.
so, and I someone was asking to see some of my work and like for a potential project, and
You've
I
been
was
doing creative work since I've known you since high school.
yeah,
So
so even
yeah,
before
yeah,
then, but at least like
yeah.
getting paid to do it, and I someone was asking for my reel, and I was like, first of all, I looked back and I was like, man, I haven't updated my reel in 10 years, and I'm proud that I've gotten work since then,
Yeah.
but it's also kind of embarrassing that I haven't. But the most,
Mm, mm.
um, and it was kind of eye opening. And I also then I got digging further, and I was looking back, and I was at my work, and I was like, man, I can't even. I don't even know what I would send this person if they said, "Hey, like, what's like your thing? What is like your creative piece? Like, what's your a representation of your work?" And there's like I was lucky enough to work on commercials and big corporate jobs and all types of motion graphics and video projects, but I don't have that thing. I don't have that piece where it's like, oh, okay, that's my voice, my sensibility. I don't even know what I would send if someone asked for that. I have a reel that shows work that I can do, but I haven't over time made pieces where I'm like, okay, that's me,
Mm.
and I don't know why, because I have so many ideas and I've tried so many times. I don't have I just don't I haven't completed it, or I haven't followed through on it.
Mm.
And all this time has gone by, and it's and you've been there,
I
making
have.
stuff.
Back in the day, we were doing C4D nights. Remember that? And where we
Dude,
would, yeah.
so before this conversation, I was like, you know what? It's embarrassing, but I'm going to look in the calendar and we'll explain to people what this even means. But I looked in the calendar and it was 12 years ago,
Mm.
Friday, this coming Friday.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Anniversary then.
you're saying, you said C4D night. So we
Yeah,
worked at different advertising agencies right next door, and
that's right.
Grayscale Gorilla, shout out to him. Like he was
Yeah,
coming up, and
Nick Campbell.
he was like the first to come out with these tutorials, and we were working on them. Like, and it's just so crazy to think that I was learning it in the beginning, the same time you were,
Yeah.
and look at what you've been making now, and it's just it. I'm not saying that was meant for me, but
Yeah.
the fact that like I couldn't even take it past like the second week of us doing it, and it would apply to my work too. Like I do motion
Mhm.
graphics work. Like it would make sense if I learned that, and I could have, you like you're doing. You can make films and apply it to so many different creative things, and I guess that's
Yeah.
another example of me not even giving myself a shot. I just
Yeah.
stopped. You continued, and look what you're making, and I don't have that thing to show for it.
Yeah. I have to applaud you for, this is something that is kind of a superpower that you have that I'm not sure if you're aware of. And I think maybe you do, is you're very self-aware. We've talked about this. This is what we love about Japan and society there and everything. People are seemingly very self-aware of themselves, their placement in society, and so on and so forth. That's why we love certain parts of it. But you yourself are very self-aware to take the time to have an introspective conversation with yourself and say, okay, this isn't working, or I need to be honest with myself that I've not given myself the chance. The last time we talked about this is that my advice, my thought was that you're not giving yourself the grace and the love to give yourself enough respect to go, I'm going to sacrifice and then become a better version of myself, and we often, like there's simple advice is there's a million excuses not to do something, but only the one to do it, and then that's just about, we're going to get into that further, but I love that you've done this and taken the time. I'm sure 90% of you that are listening to this are literally dealing with the same thing, myself included, at different levels. And this is why we felt it would be important to share this conversation publicly, because we've had it so many times in different aspects and stuff. But the fact that you can acknowledge that the past 10 years, 12 years of effort has not yielded the next level of what you want is fantastic, that you're seeing it now, because you want to see it right now. You don't want to see it tomorrow. And the fact that you're seeing that now it's a matter of getting deeper into understanding why you do what you do. Have you had a conversation with yourself, asking yourself, why am I a creative person? Why do I seek being creative? Have you figured that out?
I would say that, based on anything that I've made in the past, like the drive behind it is to, and we, this is something you've said too, that you having an idea and having that idea go from your head to, something that you create, and then it's complete, and then it's put out in the world. That really, really gets me excited. I'm looking forward to that moment to where it's complete, and it might be hard, being in the thick of it and failing so many times, but I think that's the biggest reason I do it. And I feel like I have like all these ideas in my head that have accumulated over time, and time is running out, and I've gotten out only like 2% of these ideas, and that is probably why I feel such an urgency at this point in my life, is that I will only continue to do what I'm doing, because even though sometimes like I'll read books on habit and I think I'm changing, another 3-4 years will pass and I'm like, wait a second, I said in 2020 that I'd have this done. It's 2023, and where are we? And it's
something's broken here. Not broken as a bad word, but something's not working here.
Yeah, but to answer your question, the reason I do it is because I want that feeling of completing something. I want that feeling to have like my idea that, or part of my idea, that influence, to have that completed project, and that is something that keeps me working and gets me excited.
Would it be safe to say that thing is you want to be seen and you want to be heard? Not physically, but your work, your work is always the second,
I would say
really
that's
truly who you are.
I would say that's what I'm feeling now. I think that, up until this point, I was totally cool, and I'm still cool with ushering other people's ideas along the way, like working with art directors and directors, working with you and seeing you take something from nothing and create it. I'm like all about being supportive. I think,
so it's not just you.
Yeah. I guess it's not just me getting my voice out there being seen and heard. I want other people to be seen and heard too.
Yeah.
So you like being saturated in the creative act. But the completion is really the thing that you're after. This is the thing we talked about, pride of work.
Yeah.
Because I asked you, I said, what, because we got into it and you said you want to be proud or something like that. And I asked you to describe what being proud is. And you said to complete something, to take it to completion. And it is true. And this is something that we've talked about as well, is that it's easy to read all these self-help books and your brain thinks that you're basically going halfway on it. You're listening to it, and that's fantastic. There's nothing against that. The real important thing is what you do with that advice and how you take that, manifest it, what you leave behind and what you apply. I think potentially what their thing that we could find out that's breaking between this is you might not be honest with yourself of why you're wanting to do it, because if you don't have the true fuel, my true fuel is I must make something. I must be a film director. I must make these things. That's literally my true fuel. And you know it about me. It's the pure. It's like when I'm doing it, it's like, that's it. And you've been with me on these things. It's like, I'm sure you've seen it. So, but that's because the fuel is like directly to my vein from my soul. And like when we're sitting there and you and me and Tyler are filming Chimera, it's just happening in real time. And the energy is vibrant and it's blowing up and explosive. And same with everything else too. So what we need to do and figure out, and for those of you that are listening too, is like, what is your fuel? Because if you don't know what that is and you don't truly understand it, then you'll literally find yourself in the same place. Like, oh shit, I thought I wanted to do this thing, but I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. I was fueling my car. I keep using car as an analogy because I love cars. So
For sure.
I keep fueling my car with the wrong substance of fuel, and I eventually run out. Do you know what that fuel is? Can you kind of dive into, I love this because this reason, and this is what motivates me, beyond remove the world or add the world, however it works for you, because everybody's different. Everybody's fuel is different.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably where I get, I don't get hung up, I feel like, on the fuel. So for me, I'm listening to what you're saying as far as like when we were there in Chimera and you're filming and it's pure. There's a pure, like, genuine passion there and love for the art. And that the thing is that I feel that too, doing similar things, whether it is filming or going out and shooting, even like sometimes when I'm interviewing someone for a documentary, like I feel like I'm in it. I'm like, okay, this is pure. Like this is why I'm doing it,
Yeah.
And even editing, like when you just hit an edit right and you watch it and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is why I'm on Earth, and and I have that. So, that's kind of what worries me is like, man, okay, so I have the fuel, and I'm surrounded by people that have the fuel and that are executing on all these, like we'll read the same same self-help books, but they're executing, and I don't know why I'm not, and the fuel. So let's say the fuel's there, I have the idea, but it's almost like, okay, you have an idea for Chimera and I have an idea for another thing, but for me, I don't even give myself like the chance, or maybe I don't like respect my voice enough or my vision enough to be like, okay, well that should be made, like I should gather people. Yeah, I should gather people together. I should pay, or I should it's weird because I'll do it for other people's projects, and I want to kind of go back to like when we were talking about how I'm proud of projects being complete. The reason is because it's rare, like, and sadly, like there are some projects that are not complete out there that I started, and that's why when I do get something done, or when I see something get done, like, or be a part of it, I'm super proud, because I'm like, okay, that's something that like I have to figure out and work hard to do. And but for in regard to the fuel, I think I have it. I have the fuel. I'm just worried that, it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. I'm not using it in the right way. I'm not on the right road, or I'm not, for some reason, I'm just staying in place, and not
keep
going
hitting
anywhere.
dead ends. You keep going like, oh, I'm sick, I'm on the freeway. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I just pulled off. What am I doing? And then I'm on this dirt road. Dead end. You're like, crap. And I'm on the freeway going, hey, come here. Come back on here. And it's not to say that what you're doing is wrong. I don't mean to imply, it's mainly because we've had this conversation multiple times and we end up at the same crossroads. And so this is when we're going to start to really identify it, because we have not put this much public force behind this conversation. It's mostly been like, you know how I am. I don't want to push too hard, because then I'm your fuel, and that's not fair, because then you're like, get out of my tank. I need my own fuel. And because it's easy to be motivated by somebody else, but the most important fuel is from inside. It's going to come from you, because you're the one that has to sit up until 4:00 when the kids need to be taken to school at 7. You're the one that has to go through the sleepless nights, weekends, months. You're the one that has to have the hard conversations with people, because you are being selfish and you need to do what you need to do. No one else can do that but you. And that's really where the line separates. Anybody that we've ever studied and discussed that we admire at the highest level, they're unfortunately usually extremely egotistical, extremely selfish, and extremely driven. People like you can't be, I'm going to use a general analogy, you can't be, say, Michael Jordan, because I know that we all understand who he is and his relevance to society. But that guy was selfishly training, and I'm not saying selfish in a bad way. He had to get better, and the only way to get better was by giving himself the world, by taking the world by his control. And then things happened, and then, life was perfectly destined for him. There's people that work just as hard and just as focused, but they're doing different things that aren't going to necessarily explode the world open. So, anyways, the fuel. So you feel that the fuel that you have, let's dive into what the fuel is. The fuel for you is seeing the idea in your mind come forth to the physical realm, the outside realm. That's the fuel, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Correct?
I would say, that's
fuel?
accurate. Yeah, I would say that is the main fuel. I mean, outside of like life circumstances, that's the main fuel for me to do anything creative, really.
Bringing forth something. Okay. So if you have that, so then I'm trying to figure out where in the process you get tripped up on. Is it it once you have, because this is often happens to me and everybody else too. And this haunts me when I don't finish a project, it kills me. So I have to like dive in and I double down and I hold on to it, and then I use grudges and bad energy and I just get it done. This about me. I have a weird, my fuel is between positive and negative constantly. When you have, this could just come down to focus and dedication to sacrifice. That this could be the potential thing as to why we end up in the same place, or the fact that, well, I guess this is focused on a level, being completely self-aware and completely self-honest. 1 to 10, 10 being the best focus, the hyper ninja brain, and then 1 being a toddler mind. Where are you at with your focus?
Oh, I'm like at 3.5. I mean,
I love it. I'm like at 5.
Well, okay, so you kind of got me thinking. Okay, because I feel like a big part of this, and I think other people can relate, is that I'm not holding myself accountable. Okay, so it seems that that's something that you're really good at. Like, you hold yourself accountable; it eats at you. So, like you're saying, you'll use force to make sure that thing gets done, when in my eyes I'm like, it's not even that I'm easy on myself. I let excuses dictate whether or not I complete something, and I'm not proud of it. Like, I'm like, it eats me up, but I'm not holding myself accountable, and that's like, the any time that I've seen success, like, it's when I am collaborating with people, and the saying, like, it's never done, it's due, and if right. These like self-imposed due dates, I'll push them back, and I'm not holding myself accountable. And that's like a big problem. And that's why so much time has gone by with so many unfinished ideas,
Mm-hmm. I love, okay, this is good. You said you're 3.5. I feel like I'm at 5.5. It's so hard for me to focus. It doesn't seem like it, but it's really hard sometimes. And I really have to try. Oftentimes I'll sit at my computer for hours, barely awake, watching tutorials, trying to absorb when I saturate. And I'm just like, oh, I hate it so much. But I know that this is where the gold is. Unfortunately, it's just the worst part of it, but you have to do it in order to acquire those things. I use it like I think about Arnold Schwarzenegger when he's building his body, and this is a person that we've talked about as well. And comparison is the theft of joy. It's not good to compare yourself to others, and I think it's actually very unhealthy, but it's the only barometer that we have when we're just dealing with this nebulous space. But if we talk about Jason only, you talked about excuses. What you should maybe think about is, can you tell me some common excuses that come to you? Because they got to be coming. When they come to you, can you tell me like, oh, I say this when this happens, or I say that when this happens? Because I want to turn these into trigger words where the excuses actually, they'll trigger your thought and go, oh shit, like I am getting in my own way and I need to remove this from myself. I need to hear that as an excuse, as not just a reason to stop doing it, but an excuse to remove that and do the counter, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the most obvious one is like, oh, okay, well, this film idea or whatever it is, it's not a paid project, right? So, you should be out there like, pitching or networking to try and get more paid work, right? So this can, even though you really wanted to get this done this week, this month, you can push that back because, there's paid work and you got to provide and you need to be making money. So obviously, I mean, this is what I'm telling myself, obviously that's more important. And, it's because the thing is that it's not that I don't get anything done. It's the times that I get something done, it's sadly like there's a lot of pressure put on me by someone else most of the time to where I agreed to something and in the moment I'm like so mad I agreed to it, but I finished a creative project and I deliver and I'm like, man, I'm glad they pushed me to do that. And you've done that, for me and other people have hired me for things and I'm glad, but I don't ever put that pressure on myself. It's almost for my own thing. Maybe I don't value the projects that I come up with enough, but that's what I want to change. Like, and I know like there's obvious things where if I just set a due date, then, like that will be one step closer to like making sure that I have a goal and somewhere to see a result. But I don't know, all the in between is I don't know if I give up in the hard work of it, or if I give up in the kind of like confidence I have that it should be made. I'm just like, all right, well, okay, it would take this much more to get this done and to see this idea or this project through. So I guess like I have, other things, other bigger priorities or other things to focus on. So that takes precedent over this idea I have, this fun creative project I have. And it gets, sadly just thrown to the wayside, and I don't go back to it, and it's a bummer. There are a lot of things and we both read the Rick Rubin book, and like there are other people like seeing these ideas and making them, in this time where I've been sitting back and seeing other people make stuff.
Yeah, that's a good common excuse, and it's not a bad excuse, and it's actually a valid excuse to not do things outside of the form of currency. Yeah, maybe because I used to think like this as well, and I understand it because especially you being a dad and a husband and also a household provider as well as your wife, like there's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. So that's actually should be the number one thing is providing and taking care of that. Next to that, potentially in your form should be providing for yourself. Because we've talked about this, when you are not providing for yourself and you are sacrificing yourself, then your whole existence kind of suffers. It's the same for me. Like my wife knows it. If I'm not taking care of what I need to take care of, I'm just not a very good version of myself. And it's a common problem. So I wouldn't say that that's an excuse. I think that is a valid approximation of your priorities. the real trick, I think, is time management, potentially managing your time and energy, and saying, okay, for this amount of time, and you know this about me, we're both freelancers, so I'll take on a bunch of projects as much as I can, consolidate them, get them done, get paid, and then I'll say, okay, I have a forecasted couple months free because I don't have to think about the expenses. So now I can just really hone in on this one goal, this one project, or this two projects. Usually I like to do 2 or 3, as you know. These are 3 things that you discover and find. You might be a 1 project person. Some people are just a 1 project person. You might be a 2 project person. I suggest being multiple because it gets hard and you need to shift. If you have a low attention span like me, you need to shift from one to the other, and you can quickly bounce and toggle around. But anyways, so I would say in my mind, that's not an excuse. That's just a shift in priority. Making money is key. Now the trick is, and that's a whole nother conversation we could probably discuss on another episode we would do together, but is money and acquiring money and using it as, I think of money as energy conservation, and money as being this device to give me my time back. That's really all I look at it as.
For sure.
That and buying like cool toys and stuff, but that's the typical use of it. But it's just energy. It's just how much energy can you buy, take, and store, and then save, and then harness. But yeah, so the thing you also mentioned is you need like an internal pressure cooker. Like, you didn't say this, but you need it for yourself because you're willing to let strangers and clients dictate that pressure system on yourself, but not yourself. So let's dig into that. What is it like? What's the difference there? Like, is it because the money is the connecting piece, or?
I don't think it's the money. I think it's because someone else is depending on me getting that complete, and
yeah,
if I'm the only person depending on, and if no one's depending on, like, if I have an idea for a video that I want to put out, no one's asking for it, no one even knows that I have this idea or this like passion to make something. So there's maybe the pressure's off in my head, because I don't myself have that expectation that, that needs to exist and needs to be complete, or people are expecting it. So then I'm like, oh, okay, well then the world will never know, that I didn't make it, and that's like a hard thing to, constantly struggle with and realize that, that I'm willing to just, stop before I even start sometimes. And that's, at least for my own projects, and that's, it's a bummer to realize that. But, part of this process hopefully is that, I will be doing the work to hold myself accountable, and also just, like, this is a timestamp, and, weeks and months from now, like, where am I at, and it won't be that like normal late night conversation we have to where it's like 5 years from now we have it again. You're like, oh, here we are again, like, no, I mean, that's the thing. And we're getting older, and we're getting further along in our careers, and it's a necessity. I know that, like, I'm done. I'm so over, not making these, what I meant to make,
Yeah. I feel it. I feel it in you. Yeah, I feel it. I feel the energy. I feel the pressure within. You mentioned accountability. We've discussed that as well. One thing I do, and this might help you, is that I think about the audience, and this is a double-edged sword, as you know, is when I make something, I think about the audience that's going to experience it, and I go, this is going to be fucking epic. This is going to be so great. I can totally see people freaking out on this part right here. Oh, and I think about, when I think about my audience, they don't exist, but yeah, of course, right? Because they have not seen and experienced it. I'm thinking about the most joyous, childlike version of myself experiencing it and being pumped on it. It's probably like a comedian, and you love comedy. like a comedian coming up with a punchline and go, oh, this is going to kill. The worst part about that whole thing is you need to, upon delivery, you have to turn that audience off, because the audience in you is your inner child, right? It's the audience that's giving you the joy to make. But what in reality is, the world is not going to be your ideal inner audience. They're going to be critical, cynical, harsh, all of the things you didn't really think about. You don't ever want that in your internal when you're building things, because it can literally crush you. Because we're at this point, and all artists are, if they're really truly creating something, when you make something and you sit down, it feels like you feel so raw. You feel like you should feel somewhat worthless and useless, and that you shouldn't do these things. I know people will consciously, oh, you shouldn't think like that, but it's literally the truth. You know, it's like you should feel raw, because you should think, I don't know if this is worthy. That's when you need to work past it and go, it is worthy. I can do this. And some ideas are not meant to have any value. And some of them are exercises, and some are really touchstones of society. Very rarely are we going to ever come up with those regularly. And it's shown through the history of idea creation that most people have one of them. I mean, rarely does one person have an incredible idea that just lasts. I was watching the documentary on Einstein last night. People saying he's an alien. That was kind of interesting. But anyways, like that's a person who had multiple ideas, but some of them stuck and changed the zeitgeist of the human mind and how we perceive things like time and relativity of space, travel, and all this kind of stuff. But anyways, I think the real trick is having an internal audience. Because I know I've seen it in you. We'll talk about something, we'll make a joke like, oh, dude, that's so funny. And you have to be sitting there and going, I'm on a stage and I just told the joke and it killed. It's hilarious, you know? And when you make your work, you have to go like, oh, this is sick. Like my internal audience is just super pumped on this. This is so cool. I know you know this about me when I make something like, oh yeah, this is going to happen. And then that, yeah, you know, and then the world reacts differently, and that created, until I learned how to turn that off upon delivery, it was really difficult for me. As you know, it's like I got really sensitive, and it was really tough when the world didn't receive the work the way that was intended. But that's not their job, and that's not fair of me to require and request that of strangers. That's, once it's delivered, it's literally theirs, and it doesn't belong to me anymore. I just have my own version of that. But that's a whole nother discussion.
That's something to think about, though. Honestly, I guess I've seen you do that, but I've never really kind of pointed it out or tried to apply it to my life, as far as, you know, having that internal audience and you know, wanting to make something for that internal audience, like, because I guess yeah, so that's something that I've never tried, and I think maybe that's something that can make a difference, as far as just being like, okay, well, I'm going to make this for I'm going to make it for myself, and I'm going to make it for maybe the people that have my same sensibility, or the people that like what I like, that have the same taste. Like, I'm going to make it, I have to make it for them, you know, or I have to make it for myself.
Yeah.
You know, we talked a lot, and I love that. And that should be a motivator that you should chew on and think about and meditate and put some energy towards, I would suggest. Think about, because, you know, we've talked about this too. It's like we relate things a lot, like, oh, this person's doing this and that, but they're only relevant to us because they're themselves. You know what I mean? You're never going to be relevant to anybody if you're trying to copy somebody else. You'll never be. You'll just literally be a carbon copy, no matter how close you get, how good you are. You're just going to be a copy. And why waste your time being a copy? Why don't you just be yourself? It's really, it's a hard line, you know, when you have, let's take film, and you have all these people praising David Fincher, which is for all the right reasons, because he's fantastic and phenomenal, and his whole team and his squad. It's not just him, it's his squad and everybody that's involved with him, and he's got the A++ team. And if it's not him, it's some other director. I'm just using him as an example. There can be you can do a Warren Buffett, or you can do like some sort of Olympic athlete or something. It's all the same. But the moment you try to become that person is like really where you rob yourself of this. And this is something I want to talk about. This is like, it's difficult when you're in your stage, leaning into it, to go, oh, okay, I think the world doesn't know me, but I deserve to have the moments of their time, you know?
Mm.
And when you do that, you're like, oh, well, Fincher gets a moment of their time. How did he do it? And then you go, yeah, I'm going to copy this, but that's the wrong approach. So when you're going into this, you should just think about what makes me laugh, what makes me happy, what gives me value. Because it's so easy. I think it's a motor neuron thing or whatever we do psychologically. We look at the world and mirror it because we know that if A plus B equals C, then, you know, I don't know, that math doesn't work. I don't think you could add letters. Well, maybe complicated math you can, but I'm an artist, so don't judge me. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, if you, because let's get into the topic of you wanting to create a YouTube channel. This is one of the projects. And when you had approached me about wanting to do it, we've had this talk many times. And this is something that I've discussed that I wanted to do as well at some point. But as you know, I've realized, and I'm cautious of my time, knowing that it would just be so much time and investment to do it the way that I need it to be done. And that's a problem that I have. You know, it's like, oh, if it's not going to be done close to perfect, then I'm not going to do it. This is a big problem. This is but everybody has a different fuel. I just want to, I want to fuel my F1 car with the best fuel, and then I want it to be exceptionally fast. But this is a big problem. Obviously, you need to have a slower car and then work up to it. Why were you thinking about doing a YouTube channel?
I think you already did touch on it in that, you know, when you were mentioning like Fincher or people that are able to capture other people's attention, right? And by using their voice and their unique perspective over time, like, and I've always thought this, that like, oh, okay, well, I have something to give. I have ideas. I think I have a funny sensibility or way of looking at things. Like, I should make something. And then I write down these ideas. I write down scripts and outlines, and over time, like, I have this backlog of drafts of potential videos, YouTube videos, and particularly, I think why I always wanted to do YouTube is because I just have, you know, this is obvious, but we have more control over it, other than if we're trying to go make some feature film or some sketch or something that, you know, would reach the masses. If you know, there's barriers to entry, and then this doesn't have a barrier to entry. But it does have to do with the fact that, you know, I've always kind of felt that, like, okay, these ideas that I have are worth putting out there. But that's where it stops, because then I'm like, okay, maybe it's like an insecurity thing, like a vulnerability thing. I don't want people to, you know, really know who I am or something like that. But we're living in a time where, you know, ordinary people, and that's what I consider myself, like, could still have an impact, or at least have a small community around them, you know. And you know, that's why I think it's a format for my ideas that I have, you know. And it can come in so many different forms, and it's nothing like, you know, the work that I've done. So it's kind of like, okay, this is something different. This is something that hopefully is more me, you know, than any of my portfolio work. But yeah, I guess, like, I don't think it's like arrogance or ego. I just think, like, okay, there's ideas I have that I want to get out there. This is just a format for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's arrogant or ego. I mean, some ego, but not bad ego. I think ego is, a certain amount of ego is healthy, with it, as long as it's in its own check system. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of, it's cool. It's also a place for you to quantify and look at your efforts and go, like, well, I'm this person, but this is truly who I am spiritually, and it lives here. So it's like a place for your art to live. It's like a website or a way to kind of present yourself in a digital sort of form. This is one of the hard questions I asked you when you were talking about it. I said, if nobody watches it, nobody likes, nobody subscribes, nobody does all these metrics, would you still do it, and what would it be?
Yeah. So, when I think about that, I want the work. Like I want the peace that comes at the end of it, and even if I had a personal Dropbox folder of all these, like, short films or whatever it is, these videos I did throughout the year, that would kind of like, that goes back to what I brought up in the beginning. If someone asked me like, hey, like what's your, show me some of the work that you've done that you're proud of, and that's like, that's your style, then I would have that, whether or not I shared it or posted it, I'd at least have this like, collection of art that's like, okay, this is me. I made it. Here it is. This is where, my voice comes out, and so I do want people to hear and see the work, but for me, that's not the drive really. I mean, outside of like, showing my family and close friends, like that would be what I would be most excited about, showing that I made something and showing that I made, that I completed this idea that I had, that would be the main drive behind it.
What holds you back from completing a task, you think, most of them, like besides excuses? Have you identified what it is? Is it an abundance of ideas? Is it lack of choice? Is it lack of commitment?
So I do feel like, a lot of times what I'll do when I have an idea, big or not, like it'll seem insurmountable in the beginning. And the only times that I complete anything, I have to like really, really work through that beginning stage of it, where it's like at least going through and filming that first section, and I'm like, okay, I've shown myself that this part, it's doable, and it looks as good as or close to as I had hoped. And I guess in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm showing myself that it can be done. But outside of there, like I'll stop myself. Like I'm comfortable talking about even like an actual idea. I brought up to you that I've wanted to make like my own like Black Mirror episode, right? Not even a full episode, but just like a little intro, because I love that show or the sensibility, and I have an idea for it. So I'm like, okay, I know exactly what it looks like. I know exactly what like parts it would take to make it, and I've outlined it. I even know like a location it would take, and but I'm not even giving myself a chance to reach out to people and take the first steps. I've been sitting on that idea and many ideas like it for years and years, and it's only become more and more doable, possible to make. It's only gotten easier to make, and I've only gotten further from making it. So that's like an actual example, and so specifically for that, what has stopped me is, I guess the end product seems so far away that I'm not taking those first steps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first steps are some of the hardest ones, because it does take a long time. You have to be willing to understand that it might take you 2 years to complete. And it makes no sense. I mean, you saw the process with Chimera. It was just it was a slog, basically. It's just like constant. Who would have thought 15-minute film takes 2 years to make? But it's just, and it doesn't always have to be that way. You could do it quickly. You can make smaller projects, and you could design things so that they work in your favor. And, one thing we talked about is we both love food, and we love photography and capturing it. And there's so much great food where we live, and like doing a fun like food vlog thing that would be showcasing some of our favorite foods and how they're made. And we watch a lot of YouTube channels and people that go off and do these kind of things, and they bring a lot of fun entertainment and resources, and it's something that's completely in our wheelhouse. Oftentimes you watch it and go like, oh man, I could have made that. But then, but you didn't, because you made all these other excuses as to what your priorities are. writing down notes, one of the things that we're going to dive into. And so if you're saying one of the key things is that you just aren't willing to, you know that the first step is some of the hardest steps, but maybe you don't know what step is the first one. Is that what it is too? You don't know, like, okay, well, I've already written the thing, and how do you take an idea from a script and a concept to the next level, and potentially it could just be like finding your actors, having conversations with them, talking to your DOP, which I told you I'd shoot it. The locations, working out those details. I mean, you're going to hear 10 no's for every, one yes, but you're searching for the yes.
Yeah. I do feel failure. Like it's not just, that I'm sure that has something to do with it. Not taking the first steps because I don't know exactly what the first steps are. That's because all of this is so abstract. There's no one way to do any of this. And that's what sadly becomes paralyzing sometimes, especially in the beginning. Once I get through it in the times that I have, and we're in the thick of it, and I'm filming and making, I'm like, okay, now I'm in the sweet spot, and now I can see this getting completed. It's still not always like inevitable, but at least like I'm working towards that. And yeah, I do feel like being lost those first couple of steps, and it's almost like I would be better off just like taking the first steps, even if they are wrong. It's just like at least doing that, and it applies to all types of projects. It's not even just like a short film type of thing. It's even easier stuff. And I know you brought up like the food thing, like making just like one video that's like a food show. Like it's something we can totally do. Like, I mean, take a couple days at least to film. Yeah, take a weekend to film, and then like we're off. Like we have something, and it is weird. I don't know like why I'm not giving myself the room to do that, to make those things, putting it on the calendar. We live by the calendar, and why is it not just on the calendar and it's a priority? Like, we have the support, thankfully, from our families are supportive of these things, and that is something that needs to change and will change. And I'm hoping with accountability, and I'm hoping with just finding ways to navigate those first couple steps, and that I'll be working towards like actually getting these things done. And that's where YouTube kind of comes in. If there's an expectation that you're going to make something every 2 weeks, every month, maybe that is part of my solve and accountability. Maybe I need a community around me. Like you're always super supportive. But I don't want to rely on that, It's like you were saying.
That's the fuel that we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want your fuel to come from internally and be really strong, and because you can avoid burnout if your fuel is pure. You can go like, okay, like I wasn't ever using that as a fuel, because a lot of times, and social media and these kind of things have been incredible at exposing this about us, but a lot of people, like myself included, and most people, we desperately seek the love and attention of strangers because we didn't have it for whatever. We have a deficit. I don't think you have that necessarily. I think you are pretty sovereign to your own self, but we all have it in some regards. We want to have some sort of appreciation from those around us, some more than others. And when you have it really bad, it becomes a crutch, and it's really unfortunate. But anyways, I think that's really the trick. I would say, if I could give any thoughts to advice of it, as I would say that it might be best in your mind to kind of take stock of all your ideas and all of the things that you have, and maybe just exercise one of them that is obtainable, and give yourself a realistic but tight timeline like a client job would have. So let's say if it's like, let's just use the abstracted idea of picking your favorite restaurant and making a little special about why you love it and making it your style. And going, okay, I'm going to give myself 2 weeks for a full completion. Let's see if I can do it. You sit there and you write an outline as to like, these are all the things I love about it. Well, obviously, probably the first thing is you need to call them or go there and talk to them and say, hey, I would like to make a film on you.
For sure.
get approvals and okay, yeah, and talk to the right person, make sure it's okay. And, okay, I'm gonna schedule this time to come back at this time when you guys are closed, so I can do this and that, blah blah. You work out those logistics, and then you have an outline. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
And then you find the flow, and then you go and capture the footage and put it together. You react differently because what you get isn't what you intended, and then you put it together and you're like, okay, 2-week project. And those become push-ups. When you're first starting, I think it's really key, which is so hard to do, is you get precious. You want everything to be perfect because you look at everybody and everybody's killing it. You're like, shit, I need to be killing it. But that's is unrealistic. You don't get in a car and then it's instantly 100 miles an hour, unless you're in a Tesla. Oh, just kidding. But it takes time to get up to speed.
Yeah.
So I'm telling myself the same thing, because I'm like learning Unreal Engine, and I'm like saturating my brain with all these things. And I realize, like, don't make it precious. Just make a bunch of crap and fail. And fail in the regards of, it's not going to be, Apocalypse Now, the restaurant review. It's going to be, just your thing, and you're going to get better at it with time, as you know. But holding yourself accountable, having an idea that's obtainable, and then literally going out to do it. I would say also is it might help you or it might hinder you for me to go there and hold you accountable and be like, okay, on this date, we're going to go do this thing. I'm going to be there. I'm going to film this part. That way you're like, oh shit, Ash is going to be here. I can't, we got to get this done. And also I need to finish it and just make something out of it. This is kind of the goal of this conversation too. I'm going to hold you accountable to something at the end. So
yeah, dude. I know.
The pressure.
And look, I'm totally comfortable with realizing the fact that at least in the very beginning, I need that, I need external factors to hold me accountable. And then the hope and my hope and what I strive to happen is that, okay, like, you're holding me accountable, other people are holding me accountable to complete these things. And I get in this, mode where I'm like, okay, this is, now I have the flow of it all, or now I at least like believe in myself enough to where like, okay, I made these like 2-3 pieces. Like, what's stopping me from making this next idea? And the accountability thing, because it's hard to think of a way to immediately solve it internally. I feel like that's gradual too, right? Like that I can't, it's just not a switch. Otherwise I would have flipped the switch so long ago, and made some of these things that I've been wanting to make. And if you hold me accountable, like, yeah, man, I'd appreciate it, if anything. So, I do think it's necessary, honestly.
The most important thing, though, is to ask yourself, what is the fuel? Why? And being really honest with yourself, because eventually you have to remove me from that equation of fuel, and I'm not going to be there to hold you accountable. Nobody else is but you. And why do you seek the desire to finish things is really the key. And sometimes it becomes very nebulous because it becomes levels. And you're like, oh shit. It used to be that I wanted to make something for other people, but then you get past that. As an artist, you eventually evolve past that and you go, well, I just want to make it for this reason, or to express myself, or whatever it might be. Everybody's different. But oftentimes you evolve past those things. But the trick now, I think, is really understanding intrinsically your complete fuel. Every true artist has a true fuel, whether they understand it or not. But they have something within themselves. It's like calling, and it's the fuel that fuels that calling, which is really the key thing. So understanding that.
Yeah, and I think that, although you say you don't have like a good attention span or whatever, like, I think that you are able to get laser focus when you need to. And also I think you do have a focus overall. Like, the car stuff you do still feels like you, as similar to the film and similar to the CGI work you do. It feels like you. Like, I've always considered myself a master of none, where it's like I have interest in so many different things. I'm pretty good at a lot of different things, but I'm not really good at one of them. And I'm okay with that, like, I guess not necessarily that I don't strive for greatness. It's more like, so for example, like the 2 examples of videos that we gave, like, I more want to make them part of the fuel is to see that I can complete this project, and also at the end and be like, okay, well, is this something that's me, like, that I want to do more of, and I'm like, oh wow, I was really like, feeling like myself when I was in that, when I was making X or directing this or editing that, or interviewing or making this type of video, like, oh wow, this is really me. And I haven't even given myself a chance to know whether or not that is something that I want to continue doing, or something that really is the best use of my skill set or my purpose, and that's part of the fuel too, is like, I want to make one of these, or make this, to know like, okay, this is something you love, so give yourself a chance to make more of it.
This is it. Yeah. Because like you talked about, it's like the laser focus to impose your will of taste, is really key. And this is the only reason that you should make something, is to express yourself, I think.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong, but when you do something outside the means of money and that whole system, and you do it purely for pleasure and exploration and intention, it should solely just be because you are wanting to express yourself truly.
Yeah.
And when you truly do that, I mean, we know this, because when you truly do that, you feel it. You as the viewer feel, oh wow, this is different from that. Why is that? This person's just authentic. And you see it nowadays, like, people can be authentic with zero worth. Literally zero worth. They're just not even contributing anything to the world. I sound like some old guy, but like, I'm being true. There's so many people out there that are just like, they're not giving much to humanity. They're not getting people to think, and they are being authentic, and they are being their authentic selves. And their authentic self is just garbage. But there's not, obviously, I'm being cynical. There's obviously way more great people that are doing incredible things. What I'm saying is that it doesn't matter, because they're just, you just got to be authentic. And this is true. This is something that I applaud Tyler for helping me when we were building Chimera. He was so fundamental to championing that in me, which is saying, is this something that you want to do? Is this something that I'm talking about filmmaking when we make Chimera, and this is like, he was an incredible supporter of that, as you know, and an incredible collaborator. And you need that, it's so hard. And for you to just go out the gate and be like, I'm going to make a Black Mirror episode, I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot for anybody. It's a lot for even people making Black Mirror. There's like, damn, we go out, keep swinging and hitting the home runs and stuff. But something smaller, not in a bad way, but like really condensed and just fantastic, and it just captures the essence of it. And you know how it is when you edit, like, it takes you 100 things to edit until you go, oh, yeah, this is my flow. I mean, I start to see it now. I'm like, oh, sick. Yeah, this is how I cut. This is how I work. This is the flow of it. But then you learn it by yourself. Your taste and style comes from all the failures you've overcome. That's how I look at it. But you can't know your taste and style unless you fail. And then it's like a chicken and egg problem.
Yeah.
But you should. Sorry, go ahead.
No, well, to that point, I feel like, I'm sure failure has been a part of the reason why I haven't made, some of the art that I want to, is because, I've, seen maybe like I've gotten close and I'd be like, oh wow, this isn't like what I want it to look like. Like maybe I shouldn't finish this. Maybe I shouldn't go down this path. Maybe what I see in my head isn't actually what I can make for a specific type of thing, and so I'm scared of that failure. But the truth is that like so many of the people that have they make terrible things at first, you know, and I don't even like, and you were talking about this, like wanting it to be perfect, when you make it the first time, and it's not even like perfection. for me, I guess a lot of times it's just, yeah, I mean, maybe it's just that it's not at the level, or it's not like, close to what I saw in my head kind of thing. But I mean, it's done me no good, up to this point, like stopping myself from putting stuff out, it would almost be better to have like a bunch of bad work and then one really good piece you like than literally no work.
Yeah, well, totally. And I appreciate that you're honest about that. Failure is one of the biggest things that holds anybody back. It holds me back from doing things. And yeah, I was thinking, like, when you watch a movie and at the end you see the credits, people often credit, if a movie does well or bad, they credit the director for taking on all of those roles. When in reality, it's not really fair. The reason why all those people are there is because that director needs the support to do so. But you and I, and most people listening to this, aren't in the position to be able to hire hundreds of professionals at high levels to accomplish these things. So you have to be realistic. This is something I had many talks with Anthony Scott Burns with, which is, we want to represent ourselves as Fincher people level, but it's like, we made Chimera, it was just the three of us out there in the desert. Yeah. It's just like, the fact that it came out to the level it did was like, okay, cool. Like, that's an accomplishment. But it's also can get in the way when you're trying to make things too. It's like, okay, you have to be realistic about the skills and the tools that you have. And it's really good that you go off and make something, go, shit, this isn't not what I had in my mind. That's literally a common thing that plagues us all, really, because it's just like, okay, in my mind it's this, and then here it is this, and but then the whole here is you have to go, okay, do I fill this blank void of sorrow with not doing it? But that's one reason. Okay, I'm just not going to do it because it hurts and it sucks. Or number two, am I going to spend all of my time and energy filling that vacuum to be good at it? That's another thing. So that takes patience, time, focus, all of these things. Or do I get better at communicating and acquire people that are better than me that I can direct? These are the different constructs, basically. And I'm literally just talking about like collaborative, creative filmmaking stuff. There's multiple avenues, but most people that are massively successful never, ever can just do it themselves.
Yeah.
They're always a mess.
But they also don't quit, though. That's the thing. Is I think that's the difference. Like when the
Their
example
fuel is
you
very
brought up,
rich.
Yeah, like right in the beginning where you can, when you see that void, you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is not meant to be made. The difference is that even yourself as an example, you go out and make it, regardless, and you find a way, whether it's hiring someone or learning the skills yourself. And yeah, that's, that's just something that I haven't given myself a chance to do, and that's the reoccurring theme of this podcast.
Well, and I know for a fact, most people that are listening to this are literally dealing with one aspect of these issues. And it's coming at you like a Swiss Army knife, attacking you like left and right. And it's yourself. You're the one getting in the way. But the wonderful thing is you're able to like step outside yourself and analyze yourself and actually have an opinion of growth, which is, dude, it's massive. Because if you are, most people can't do that. But if you can do that, the first step of a problem is identifying it, personifying it, and then obliterating it. So, and the only way to do that, and we're going to talk about time management here too, but accountability is really tricky. And the reason why I'm just trying to figure out why it's been hard for you to have accountability to others. I mean, it's been easy for you to have accountability to others, but not yourself. Last time we talked, I said, I think it's because you don't give yourself enough respect. You don't give yourself enough, like, I deserve to take this time for me to get this done. And that's, do you think that's a valid assessment?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I've always prided myself on making like some form of sacrifice, it's,
Mhm.
and it's not even like a selfless thing. It's more like, that's what I feel like my purpose is. Like if I'm comfortable in sacrificing myself and comfortable in giving something up in order for family or whatever it is to be in a better place, then like I don't hesitate, and maybe I'll respect other people's, wishes and projects, or just like, uh, respect other people's, like what they're trying to do in life, like over what I'm trying to do. And it's, and I mean, I know there are good things about that. I'm not going to act like it's like a terrible feat, like a terrible thing to do, but it is something that has stopped me from, doing stuff for myself. And I don't know. I mean, that it's kind of like, I'll be honest, it's something that has been ingrained in me and like is a part of me. And but I feel like if I like somehow treat myself and that internal audience like as the client or as that friend or family that needs that thing,
Mhm.
like it just needs to be done or needs to be made, I'm willing to make the sacrifice for them to get it done, or to get it done for them. Like somehow I need to figure out how to make the sacrifice, like to get it done for myself.
Mm.
I don't know exactly what those steps are, but I'm, I've gone too long and have seen it like too many times to let it go on any longer. That's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's like I said, it's very important to be self-aware at this point, because yeah, if you're not, then if you can't identify it yourself, then there's no hope. The first step
Yeah.
is to identify your flaws and then to build upon them. It's a tough conversation because you're just like, another
Yeah.
thing I must add here is that I think that we expect so much of ourselves. Raising kids itself is a full-time task job, and it's one of the most important jobs you can have as a human being, to create good human beings. And that's literally should consume your whole life,
It does.
And then second to that is a marriage. It's somewhat unnatural to spend so much time with somebody. I think about that. It's somewhat unnatural simply because it's kind of a weird thing, that we do. But it's also really beautiful. It's a fantastic thing that we do. And I think we're both very blessed because we have fantastic, strong, smart, wonderful women in our life that are our counterpart. And we're very lucky to have that. But that itself is also a full-time task,
Yep. Yeah. I mean, well,
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm sure, everyone else like, has some form of this, like in outside factors that the thing is that, we've both seen and I've seen in you and your family, like you're still able to accomplish so much, and the last thing I want is to look back and I would never like resent my family or, my wife or my kids, but, I would hate to look back and think like, oh, wow, I was giving so much to them that I forgot about like the things I wanted to do, and anytime, and this is, I've experienced this, like when I'm doing well, and I guess this is obvious, but when I'm doing well, like I'm better for them, when I'm like, accomplishing what I want to accomplish and I'm in it, then I'm more present, if anything, because I'm happier. I'm not thinking about this other nagging thing in my head. So, I think that it will benefit. It'll be hard, but having their support, like everyone will benefit from, me being able to like give myself an opportunity to make these things that I've been wanting to express for so many years.
Yeah. Yeah. The trick and the reason why I bring up these multiple parts of your life, because you are excellent at them. You're one of the few friends I know that is just fantastic dad. And it's because you
Thanks,
love
man.
it. Like I can tell that that's a rare thing, you know. I have to work at being a good dad. It's tough. I didn't really have one. Had a weird childhood, so it's like, but that's not an excuse. It's just, it's not. It seems like it. I don't know if this is an insult, but it seems like it comes natural to you.
No, that's not an insult at all. I think I've always thought that before I had kids. I'd be like, I think that it goes back to the whole self-sacrificing thing. I'm like, I would be perfect in that situation because I'm like, I'm good. Like if I need to stay up all night, if I need to put someone else first, like, I don't know. It's kind of like, yeah. And it's definitely work and I make a lot of mistakes, but it does come more naturally to me. But that it's funny because that makes it even less of an excuse too, right? Like I'm like, okay, well, I have the tools to, you know, strive to be a good dad. So I'm actually not like having to work extra hard to like want to be around them. You know, it's like, okay, well, I have that and I spend quality time with them when I'm with them. So when I'm away from them, like, let's focus, like, let's make something, you know, let's because they're obviously part of the fuel. I think everybody's, you know, support system is part of their fuel. And I don't like, it was funny. I heard, I don't know where I heard it, but I saw like Jim Carrey talking about, it might have been his like commencement speech or whatever, but he talked about how his dad was like so funny. And his dad could have been a comedian. He could have been what Jim Carrey was, but he didn't take that leap, and he didn't, you know, give himself a chance. And it's a sad thing, and it's you know, amazing to see that your son or your kid do that, but it's like, you know, I'm sure it was hard, and it sounded like it was hard the way he was describing it, to see your father like not accomplish something that they could. And like, to me, that's another thing too, is that, like, you know, I want to show them that, like, look, I had these ideas. It took me a long time to focus on them and to get them made, but there's still like a lot of life left to live. And, you know, I think there are a lot of people out there that have so many ideas and aren't holding themselves accountable, and are, you know, have some level of like, you know, what I'm going through, and you know, that's the thing, the accountability is really important, because the time will go by, you know, and we're old, you know. you're older, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's to think that for one thing, like, I think about sometimes too, is that I feel like I've put in the 10,000 hours, like in at least video editing, you know, and that form of art. Like, I've put in the 10,000 hours. Doesn't mean like I'm a pro or anything, but I feel like, okay, in that time, you know, I have the reps to have created something for myself, you know, and I have made short films and stuff, but it's just not my voice. It's not me. Like, it was never my really aesthetic, and doesn't mean it's bad, but you know, at this age and at this point in my life, like, I think that this is a turning point, hopefully.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of abstraction still, so we'll have to dig into like how to remove those abstractions. And what you should do after this call is sit down and meditate on all of the projects, and which one can you do if you were forced to do it in like a 2-week span. What would it be, and how you accomplish it? And then what you would do is you need to just set out actionable courses of things. So like, you have to basically remove all abstractions. So go, okay, again, I'm just going to use the restaurant idea because this is something that we've talked about and it's already discussed as relevance to this conversation.
It's like the food show, you know, like David Chang's like, what's that show we love? Ugly Delicious. Like that. I love that show so much. And I'm like,
so good.
I know that like I have a sensibility to make something along that tone, you know, but yeah, anyways, that's kind of like something that we've talked about for the longest time. So yeah, sorry
and you already have all the mileage to do that too. You understand how to, you know, get the sound and all this kind of stuff and record and film and then put together the edit. But what you could do is list out all of the things that are abstract in this pursuit. So it's like what restaurant do I go to? Who do I talk to? When do I set up the shoot day? What supplies do I need? Who needs to be there? How do I accomplish these things? Remember when we did the jujitsu video?
Oh yeah.
The gentle art? It was like I removed all fucking abstractions. Remember how smooth that went? That was crazy. It went so smooth. It's literally because I meditated on everything that could have potentially gone wrong, and I just isolated it and I removed it. And that shoot went so incredible. It's still to this day is like, I mean, Chimera was also really, but that's because you just plan. At least that's my method. Everybody's different, but I don't like obscurities. So,
obscurities lead to, in my experience, lead to excuses, like then not knowing that one thing, something's not solid. So I'm like, I let that fall through the cracks. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's a reason not to do this thing. So no, I think that's a great idea. And I want to get to these tangible things. So I'll put together my list of ideas.
All abstractions. Oh, sorry. Your list of,
So the list of the projects, and then focus on one that is like tangible and doable. Make it something that I could shoot in a couple days, or you and I can go out and do and
shoot in one day. How would you do it in one day? Yeah. Let's say, like there's a, this is just me thinking, and obviously this is something for you to decide because your style is going to come from this, but you would find the restaurant, talk to the person, make sure it's okay. You'd go before service starts, so you'd capture all the prep. Then you'd capture some action of the place unraveling, however it is, or capture you eating it and discussing it, if that's the profile, or is it you talking over the mic? I don't know what it is. And then closing. So it would be a full day, basically. So, okay, prep, like opening shop. Again, this is all for you to discover and decide. At this point, I would basically if this is the thing, I would identify what it is, all of the abstractions, I would identify all of them. And then I would start to put references to like, okay, how does it start? And then I start to watch the show as the audience member. Okay, this would be cool. Oh, I'll start it with like this, or it'll be bold like this. It'll have this big font on it, and then it'll have this music, and you literally be entertained by it and go, this is sick. I want to see this. And then you get everything that's abstract, you fill it in with references. And then you remember when we did Chimera, I was like, we were shooting so rapidly. But if I didn't plan that out right, we would have been so screwed. Remember my shot list? How
it was
organized
like
the whole film to the second, and this one is here, and I use this lens system, and I knew how long it took me to shift things, and it was just like we were running, we were ripping. Like there was I was so tired after those 3 days. I just wanted to like fall asleep for 3 years. But removing all of those things, because not only, again, I don't know what your idea is going to be, but I'm just using the food one, is not only are you going to be the director, editor, post work, but you're going to be the showrunner, potentially the talent. You're going to be the producer. If I go to help you shoot it, then I can take care of that part. That's just one little piece of the puzzle. It's an important piece, but it's just another piece, So there's so many things, and then you really understanding what it is that you're trying to get out of it. And that's literally just that one idea. So but it's totally obtainable.
So how do you determine, that like, okay, so you have this idea, whether it's a car thing or whether it's, something else that, you want to make and you want to put out there. You're starting it. Are you like, okay, well, I want to release this 3 months from now? Or are you like in the middle of things? I'm like, oh, okay, I feel like this can be complete in a couple weeks. I'm going to start planning to like, how do you determine that, like from the beginning?
Plan like a project to design it for a release?
Yeah, just say like, okay, so say that you have an idea to make a piece, make a piece of CG art, but it's just an idea right now. I know like editing a video is like different and there's different tools and stuff, but say you have that idea. Do you put the pressure on yourself, be like 2 weeks from now, it's going to be done and I'm going to put it out? Is that how it works? Okay.
Yeah, basically. And it never happens the way I want it to, and it always takes 10 times longer. That's just because like I find...
Okay, but you put that deadline... to get yourself 90% of the way, or at least 70% of the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 I just try to self-impose, and I remove all abstractions as much as possible, because the more abstractions you have, the less it's just going to be painful. So you have to remove all abstractions, because you're going to ask yourself, because you're going to fail. If you allow too many abstractions, you're literally going to be like, what happened? You're going to just blame everything other than yourself, which you should just be blaming yourself.
For sure.
But yeah, for me, usually, I learned this from studying Todd McFarlane, because he's quite a prolific guy. This is the guy that created Spawn and various other things, an entrepreneur. He had this phrase that he said that he realized he's a 3-ball juggler, I think he said, or 4-ball juggler. Each ball represents a project and an entity that takes his time and energy. And then he realized that if he has too many, then they all fall. So he has to keep it within range. And, and a person like him, who's like a go-getter, super hardworking, ambitious as hell, he realized that there's a ceiling to even his ambition. So it's really key for you to understand that when you're going out to set out to do these things. So what I mean by that is, I try to consolidate my time and energy that has like pure focus on intention, basically. So if I have a task like, okay, I want to do this piece and I want to be finished by this, I want to finish this stage by this time, I literally say at this time it needs to be done. There's zero excuses. Just get it done. That's when hard work, focus, dedication, and work management, that's when that comes in. And these are all structures. This is like scaffolding to a building. This is like the framework. If you don't have that, your building will be just shitty.
Yeah.
So dedication, focus, hard work, commitment, showing up, doing the work. Any time that you're sitting there doing the work where it feels abstract, you need to sit and go, okay, hold on. What the fuck is happening here? Why do I feel abstract? Why am I feel like I'm wasting my time? Okay, time to reset, time to refocus. Gonna go, okay, this isn't what I said I was gonna do. So get in there and say, okay, I need to shift the way that I'm thinking about this approach, or I'm drifting here. Why am I drifting? Oh, I'm not inspired. Like last night, for example, I saturate. So I'm going through the process of learning this new program. It's difficult for me because I'm used to going really fast, because my speed is fast. So then I got to go slow again. And I hate that. But I watched a bunch of tutorials. I was doing a bunch of practice. I was failing. It was fantastic. I hated it. Then at night, I was like, let me just sit and watch a movie, and just watch the movie and reconnect with it, because it becomes so abstract. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's for me, it's like a constant amalgamation of taking an in-source of tutorials and data, and then being inspired by things, and then be reminded of why I'm doing it. And all of those things are this complicated soup, but it's what makes it work for me. And I think
that's what you're doing in order to complete this thing in a timely manner, is like you're going through all these processes to whatever it takes to get back on the, path to getting it done.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah. And when you first start out with this thing, as you do, is like, it's not bad. It's not a horrible way to look at the things that you admire and then want to replicate them.
Yeah.
Stealing as an artist is a part of the process. But if you steal with grace, that's a concept that I've been working on, is like, you can be graceful about how you take things. And what I would suggest is, don't just look at one resource, look at 3 that are somewhat different and mash them together. And what you get is usually kind of an amalgamation. And then this will help you, because in the beginning, you're going to say, oh, my voice sucks because you have not exercised it and it's not as good as this and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But you can get past those things as you go, like, oh, like at least this part is good, and at least this thing works. Okay, this is good, but it's tough, but yeah. So the first course of action I would say is to, after this discussion, is sit and take stock of all of your ideas. This is my advice. I don't know if I should be giving you advice, but I imagine this is going to help.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate it.
Take all of your ideas, find the one that you could do under pressure. It would take you 2 weeks from start to end, and it would give you a push-up this action, this thing, I would suggest it could be potentially replicatable. It's just like push-ups. So you can go, okay, in this 2 weeks, I'm going to go do this restaurant. Again, the restaurant idea. The next one, I'm going to go to this restaurant. And the next one, this one, I'm going to have 10 of them. Let's say that's your ultimate goal. Don't put that pressure on yourself. But I'm just saying, at the number 1 to number 10, you should see a big growth, because you're going to start finding the voice through the, oh, this person was weird, or that was interesting, or this person might surprise you, and you might not, the production might not be great, but their story is so damn good. Then you might go, oh, actually what I'm really after is the chef's story. Oh, that's cool. And you only get there by the sense of discovery, by action, and realizing it. And that's really that's the only thing. I'm living vicariously through you, because I really want to do that too. So
you're really hungry. It sounds like you're hungry too.
Oh yeah, I know.
Remember Best Food Friends from Master and None? That's going to be us. So
it's a fantastic show. And think about all these people. I mean, again, comparison is the theft of joy, but I mean, he had to go off and say, I have this idea to make this show about like this, and it has this flow, and it totally had his own voice, which is fantastic. And you only discover that by doing it, and your voice is there. You just have to fail to discover it,
Yeah, I feel like, comedians in particular are an example of, they have like this format a lot of times of certain shows, like Louis C.K.'s show, but every show is different, because they all have such a different life and a different, voice and perspective. So like, even if it follows the same format or shot the same way, like they all are different, so different,
Yeah.
And
Seinfeld compared to Louis.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Totally different system, different apparatus, different everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I think that's what I'm most excited about, is like finding mine, like finding what format works the best, finding what my voice is, creatively. And that's something that, like it's a long time coming, and I feel like it's not far within reach. It's within reach. Yeah.
You have the tools, like you mentioned, it's not like you've been just like lollygagging and not doing anything. It's like you have the skill, curiosity, know-how, problem-solving ability to do these things. I think really what it comes down to is you have lack of accountability for yourself. Your priorities are in the right place, which is you give them to your family, which is important. Unfortunately, this is secondary to that. Sometimes it'll come in, and this is another topic of discussion, is being honest with your spouse and your partner and letting them know, like, hey, I'm trying to evolve here and I'm trying to change and shift. And these are tough conversations to have. But it's like, I'm going to need some leniency on this and help with that. And are you okay with helping me supporting me through this process? Because oftentimes it's not really, it's very difficult. We haven't talked about time management. That's really an abstraction that ruins a lot of people. How's your time management? And do you have structures for time management?
I would say that's also at a 3.5 out of 10. Well,
good to be honest.
It's not that I don't have it. Like, we both live by the calendar kind of thing. Like, I have my list, and I have blocked out time. I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, is that sometimes I'm like spinning my wheels, and in that moment I don't find a way to get out of it, and I'm like, oh crap, 2 hours just passed, and I spent all this time like looking for inspiration or whatever, and I spent all this time, and having young kids, like as far as like schedule goes, it's pretty strict, as in like I need to physically be somewhere to pick them up and then bring them somewhere else, or be present. So that block of time that I have during the day is very precious. And maybe like, if you're going to use the analogy of like, juggling 4 balls in the air, like, I don't know. I don't think I'm a one project person. That's for sure. I think like if I have 2 things going at all times, that would be like how I thrive the best, so I can go back and forth if necessary. But yeah, I think the biggest problem is that I don't have maybe it's like a specific thing that needs to be completed each day. Like, I know, say that like we said, that's a 2-week thing. Like, what are the steps? Maybe I don't make that list. That's like, okay, these are the tangible things that need to be getting done.
Yeah.
I justify certain things, working on certain things, because I'm like, oh, this is working towards the end goal. But
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like a step on the ladder. It's like, oh, okay, I'm leaning in that direction. And so that's probably like the problem with my time management, is that I'm not using it specifically enough to knock out these tasks. It's like, okay, I blocked out the time, I prioritize it. But maybe I didn't make that list from the beginning to get these certain things done. Work stuff. It's like, I have a deadline. I will knock it out by any means necessary, or get it done ahead of time if possible for client work.
You have to do the same thing for yourself. Don't even think of them as being different. It's like, you're the client, you're the audience, and you're the most happy audience, and you want to fulfill yourself. Like, that's so awesome. Oh, that's so cool. Those are the keys. It's like, you want to have that. I think a lot of it seems like it just comes down to a lack of focus, too many abstractions. Honestly, it seems like when you go off to set off to a task, you abstractly have it in your head. And then you do put some time. Of course, you put time to it, but it could be the analogy that you're sitting in the mud with flooring the accelerator, and you're just going like, I'm driving, and I'm making a lot of noise, and I feel like I'm going somewhere, but you're literally exerting your energy in the wrong path. And you need to go like, okay, like I said, if you find the project that you can do in the 2 weeks and from start to end, which I know you can do, I've seen it, then you would basically go, these are the line list of things. So tomorrow, when I'm organizing my time, is I'm giving myself 30 minutes to call the restaurant to talk to the person, or I'm going to give myself an hour. I'm going to go there physically and talk to the person. And these are the 3 restaurants that I have, because one of them is going to say no, or 2 of them is going to say no. One of them hopefully will say yes, so that you won't waste that hour or hour and a half or 2 hours, however long it takes to get around speaking to them. Maybe all 3 of them say yes. Oh shit, this is great. Now I can schedule them. You know what I'm saying? And then you can go, I've used that time to remove that abstraction. Now I've met the person, and now they know who I am, and now I'm communicating to them, and now I'm held accountable to them. Then I have their connection. Then I go home and I spend some time analyzing references, pulling from all the shows that I love. Oh, I like this voice, this and that. Okay, I'm going to do like this. This is how I'm going to do the titles. So I want it to be shot. This is this and that. Okay, great. You've removed all that stuff too. So now you have the person, the location, the time, you have the direction of it, and then you just set up the shoot day. Okay, I'm going to come here on Saturday. I'm going to come at this time. I'm going to shoot all your prep and early stuff. We're going to stay out of your way, but we're going to capture as much as possible. Cool. Tons of B-roll, all that stuff. And we're going to do during live, the place is live, get all that stuff, whatever that becomes, and then closing. Great. So it becomes one cycle of a day. I don't know if this is just me thinking out loud. Then you have all this footage. You come back home, you analyze it, lay it all out. This is where the story goes. Sick. I have a format. Bam, bam, bam. And every day you go, okay, I'm giving myself 2 hours, 3 hours. You remember we talked about, and this is something that we should discuss at some point later as well, is understanding your flow of energy. Some of us have 30-minute flows of energy. Some of us have 4 hours. I know you and I talked about, I think that my flow is 3 hours of intense focus. If I get 3 hours of intense focus, it's like a 10-hour day for most people. I can just really get in there and smash through big tasks. But that's another thing you have to discover. It's like in your time management, you go, I need a 3-hour block to edit. And this first hour, I'm going to do layout, sorting. Hour number 2, I'm going to do this stuff. Hour number 3, I'm going to do this stuff. And this could be too regimented. You might just be like, I'm way more abstract and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes that works, but structure is fucking key. And it's so important a part of discipline. Unfortunately, we're kind of removing and reducing the beauty of art in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
By manufacturing it. But
that's how the things get done,
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the byproduct is manufacturing it. Yeah. But there's
Yeah, I
also
think-
happy accidents, as long as you're willing to be open for it. Like, okay, that's cool, or that's interesting. You remember when we were shooting Chimera, I was like, I'm just going to capture this. Who knows? And then it ends up going in the film because
Yeah.
you were willing to see it and be present in the moment to capture it. And the story will tell itself. You might realize that you had this whole thing in mind, and then you go to do this thing. You're like, whoa, this is totally. I realize I love vegetables. I'm just gonna start being into I have no idea, But it's gonna hit you, and you're gonna go, oh shit, or it won't. The first one will suck, and you're gonna go, this is worthless, and I'm never gonna share it to anybody. But I finished it. Cool. Let's get into number 2. Yeah. So
That's true.
You have to be willing. You have to be willing for the fact that it's like, again, if nobody likes, nobody subscribes, nobody cares. What is it that is left, and why are you still doing it? And that's really that's the thing you need to discover.
Yeah.
Which is difficult.
Yeah, that's I think no, that's incredibly helpful, honestly. Like I think I've lived in abstraction. So
most do.
Yeah, so removing that and being intentional and specific about what needs to get done to get this stuff made, because yeah, if I'm not allowing the space for it and I'm not being specific about what needs to be done, like in order for something to get made, like it's it'll just keep getting pushed down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to remove all abstractions, take each step like a ladder, as we mentioned, of actionable, obtainable goals that every day you're pushing it forwards. And maybe 2 weeks is too intense. Maybe it needs to be 3 weeks, just depending, considering you live multiple lives because you have a lot. It's not like you're a single person,
So that's like, that's been kind of a crutch though, honestly. Like, what I'll do sometimes, sadly, like I will stretch it out, and then that makes it, further and further away from like the excitement I had in the beginning. And
this is true.
And yeah,
you gotta close the loop though.
Yeah, for me, I'm like, okay, well, 2 weeks. Then it's 2 weeks because I'll get client work done in 3 days sometimes, I whatever's realistic depending on the project. If it requires shooting or if it's something I just shoot here myself at home, like whatever it is, like if I give myself that proper, I think 2 weeks is more than enough to do that first piece, So I'd like to just stick to that.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's really the trick, and the fact that the course of learning, you're going to hit all the pitfalls and all the bullshit, and it's going to happen. You're like, oh, damn. I didn't realize that this is going to be this. And oh man, this is difficult, and so on and so forth. But the fact that you're doing it, the fact that you're trying, and the fact that you will push forwards is really the ultimate. That's the ultimate trick, because if you're willing to put the time in and get it done, that's really the key. And these are all abstractions again, but removing them as much as possible and saying, okay, and you have to identify them. Yesterday I was sitting there and I was like, I'm in like an abstract mode. I'm not getting anything out of this time that I'm spending. Like, fuck, you need a shift. You need a shift. You need to focus and go, why am I doing this? Okay, I'm doing it for this. Wow, this is a big goal. This is abstract. Okay, well then start to nibble at it. Okay, this is, I need to know this, to know this, know this, to know this, to know this. All the answers are there. Everything is there. It's just a matter of you putting the time to sit down and assemble it. It's like I equate it almost to, you ever seen those puzzles that are all black? Every piece is black.
No, I haven't.
Oh, people are evil to themselves and like to do these puzzles that are they'll do like a spherical, like a circle, but it's all the pieces are black. And the people that love puzzles, they love these because there's no image, right?
Yeah, your reference is the shape of it. Not that seems,
yes,
daunting.
but okay, you just made an exhausting sound in a face that I know that's literally what you're doing with your task, though. It's you gotta make it a thing. Oh, okay.
I know, like, oh man, I want that black sphere. Yeah.
No, you don't want it.
No. Yeah,
you want it if you're
right.
going, like, if you've done this multiple times, and you want a crazy deep challenge. You're like, okay, well, I've done 1,000 puzzles. Now I want to get crazy with it. I'll go abstract.
And this is once you passed like a certain level, I'm imagining you're like, okay, now I want to ask myself, this is a whole nother level of things. Yeah. The great thing about art is no one's ever the best. No one's the master aside from what anybody says. There's no such thing. It's all subjective. So there's no right or wrong, and it's ever going. That means you could do art your whole life, give it your everything, and you could never be that great. Or you could be great in yourself. You know, I don't mean this to discourage. I mean, like, it doesn't matter. The idea is that you cannot master it. And that's the most beautiful thing about the art, is that you are the student indefinitely. And that's the humbling act, basically, which is, as we know.
And that's why I think it's important to start, like, at whatever age, you know, like, I'm not, you know, I don't look back and think like, man, I really missed out. I just think like, okay, now's the time, you know, and
you're calling.
Yeah. So it's, I agree. And I think, I do want to just continue doing it, like creating forever, you know, just, now, like creating in my own voice, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, you do on a daily basis outside of client work too. You also have a functioning internal business, which is fantastic as well, and that is another side of you. So this is going to be something that's going to come down to it. Is you're going to have to find out how much of you have. You know, let's look at it like a battery. You know, if your battery is at 100%, how much of your energy is taken by family? That's all time. How much of your energy is taken by your own business? That's time. How much of your energy is taken by client work? That's all time. What's left in that spectrum of battery? And you got to be honest with yourself. And this is a difficult question. Most people have really shoot themselves in the foot at this phase. They're not honest with how much energy they have. And then they burn out, or they hit a pitfall, and then a billion excuses come up, and then the project doesn't get done. And then they use that, you know, blah, 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 whatever. Again, you know, the excuse game.
Oh, yeah.
Or the blame game. People blame things for things. So you got to, maybe that's another assignment potentially. I'm giving you assignments like I'm your teacher, but this would be another assignment I would do, is like, be honest, like, because we're in different places of our lives. My daughter's 18 years old. She's basically an adult. So I have total freedom. I'm back to being where I was at the beginning of all this stuff. So I've gone through this thing, but you also have young children. It's very important for you to give them your energy. I mean, it's important for you to give your kids energy, but teenagers, they don't want to be around you, as you know. So yeah,
even if you want to give them your energy,
you're like, okay.
I mean, I would say that like you brought this up earlier, like when you do, so let's just think a part of the battery of client work. That is like ever changing. I mean, like I'll go a whole month without client work, you know, and I have that battery power there, and I'm like, oh shoot, where do I put this, you know? And because obviously family and the business I have will always like be there, but they are, you know, there is, to me, like there is more room. The fact that I have the capacity to do all this client work, in addition to that, just shows like, okay, maybe I am juggling 3 at the same time. Yeah. And then there are times where I don't have client work. Like, what am I doing? Right. You know, it's like,
what are you doing?
I know.
Yeah. What are you doing?
It's a good question, man.
Getting lunch with me and Nate.
Yeah. We're just, sitting there wasting our time with these long conversations. But,
maybe what you could do too, is you could document a week's worth of your energy and do like an energy journal and be like, okay, today I spent from this time to this time I did this, and this time to this time I did this, and not judge it, just look at it like an observer and go, okay, this and that, okay. And then at the end of the week, you can take a journal or a stock. You could do it digitally or on paper and go, oh shit, like I wasted 50% of my time. I could have used that for this thing. And again, the analogy you use, sitting in the mud with your flooring the accelerator, and you're thinking in your head, you know, the car is aiming to the sky. You're like, I'm flying. Yeah. Like I'm go. But literally you're just stuck in the same spot. And this is why you're here. This is why we're talking about it again. Potentially. Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
energy journal. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's like accountability, like taking stock of like how I'm spending my time, and like, is it, you know, uh am I using it wisely, and am I using it towards this goal, these goals that I have, for sure. Yeah, that yeah, there are no excuses, and it's yeah, I mean, I for me, like, I think what I really wanted to get out of this too was that, like I said before, that timestamp, to where it's like, okay, a month from now, like, is that 2 week project done? You know, like
Mhm.
that's where we at, and I'm hoping that the answer is yes, or I'm gonna make sure that the answer is yes. You know, that's there's no other like, 'cause otherwise, what am I doing? You know, um,
Yeah. What are you
yeah.
doing? Yeah.
What am I doing?
That's that. Well, that's really the trick. I think that would be actually
Yeah.
be really good for you to, this first week is like, take stock of all of your ideas. Find the one that sparks your inner audience, that makes you super excited. Great. Okay. I think this is going to be good. I feel it. You'll feel it.
Yeah.
I want to do this one, and make sure it's one that you could do in a 2 week span of time.
Yeah.
And then this week you should maybe just do a energy journal. Be like, okay. And just what I would do is I would say, every time you shift a role in what you're doing, just write it down, put it in your phone or whatever. At 3 p.m., I shifted. I had to go pick up my child. Okay. And then you come back and go, okay, at 6 o'clock, I'm making dinner. You know what I'm saying? From one
Yeah.
big shift to the next. Okay, 9 o'clock, I put the kids down. I had an hour with my wife, and then I went to sleep. Okay, this is how it works. The next day you look at it. Okay, I know you don't sleep much too, which is kind of a superpower you have. I don't know if it's good or bad. Yeah.
Not good, but it is a superpower, but it's not good.
Yeah, you can operate, like, you're pretty good. You're functioning on low sleep like I do, which is not good because it eventually catches up with you. But if you just do, every time you shift, just write down, just make it really quickly. It's like you're sending a text message. Okay, like right now I got to shift. I got to, on your way of walking from your office to the car, you could have enough time to say okay, what time is it? 2:27. Boom.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going. All right. And then your summary at the end of the day, potentially before you go to sleep, is you should look at those things and say, from 1 to 10, I feel tired is 1 and 10 feels energized. And then you go, okay, I feel like a 3. Shit. Okay, this is a problem. After all of these things, I feel tired. That means I don't have a whole lot of power left.
Yeah.
Something has to give, something has to shake. I have to get rid of these things. I have to remove that thing. I wasted time here, so on and so forth,
Yeah.
Remove the
that could be
distraction.
helpful.
Yeah. Then you'll be able to go, okay, well, next week is going to replace this week most likely, right? Because you're routine based.
Yep.
Even being a freelancer, you're routine based.
Yeah.
You get the kids have schedule. You follow that schedule.
Life has its routine. So,
yep. And then once you have that, then the week after you go, okay, Monday last week I went to sleep with the energy level 3. That's because I did X, Y, and Z. I'm removing X. I'm keeping Y and Z because I can't. Those are top priorities. We talked about Eat That Frog, that book, the priorities.
oh yeah.
That's a super key and clutch to understanding your priorities. You should only be doing A, B list priorities, and everything else should
A
just
plus
be
B equals C. No, I'm just kidding.
A plus B equals C minus D.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're right. I mean, that's Eat That Frog formula is a great. I mean, that's probably a great way to kind of keep track of what I'm doing throughout the like energy journal, as far as like the things that I'm doing, like where do they live in those priorities buckets.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, and yeah, I think that'll be really helpful.
Yeah.
And then
I think so
I'm
too.
going to make something.
Yeah. Yeah. So by the end of this week, by Monday, or you should give yourself a whole week. So by Wednesday of next week, you should have your project that you want to do, that you can do all those things, like you put in a confined space. Then, then you need to have a good basis of your energy journal to understand how it ebbs and flows, where you're wasting your time, where you're using it, where you can't avoid. Like I said, your priorities are to your family. So making sure you're on time to pick up your kiddos and being present for dinner and all of the things that I know you're responsible for. Those are A-list things that you can't not do because it would sacrifice too much. And then the B-list things, and then the C-list, and everything that's C-list, you just go, I need to remove this. This is not working smart. And then you'll understand your energy journal, how that all works. And then from there on, you can start to, I'll do it with you if you'd like. I can go, oh, okay, shit. Yeah, because sometimes I'm like, where did that time go? Literally, where did the week go? Yeah. And I don't have anything to show for it. I do, but it's like, it's not enough. You know, I'm always like super critical, and I want the world. And I'm not satisfied when I think I don't know if I've showed you this new system I have. You know, my list system, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you've shown me like the Eat the Frog system.
Yeah. I have these little, stamps. These are stamps that I got, like rubber stamps.
Hayao Miyazaki? What is that?
Yeah, Miyazaki. Totoro. Yeah, I got these when I was in Japan, and I got these. So when I complete, I always set out a task for the day. I have all my lists. We'll get into this sometime.
Yeah.
This is like a YouTube thing. Like I would think it'd be fantastic to do an episode on time management and systems of it. But I write out the list the night before, as you know, and then if I complete 80% of it, that's 100% for me. So I give myself a little stamp at the end of the day. Yeah. It's like these little things, it's these little things that, they're silly and trivial at the time, but once you do it and you do it more often, you realize that, it just kind of evolves into like
it makes a difference, and you feel like you accomplished something. So I can see that.
Yeah. And little tasks and little goals add up, like little things. So like at the end of your day, if you've done all your homework, you're like, okay, I did my energy journal. Like that's a task that needs to be done. Okay. I did my inventory on all my ideas. Great. Because the moment you find your inventory and you've really discovered the thing, you can even, if you want me to hold you accountable, you can just talk to me about it, and I'll go, okay, cool. And I'll go, I would be worried about this part. I would maybe change that, or, this might be a red flag to me. Then you can get some feedback on it and then refine it. And then you can literally start to manifest the first stages. Okay, the first stage, like I said, is the first actionable thing is removing the biggest abstraction, which is who is the person that I'm going to go do this film on, and making sure they approve of me doing this. Okay, great. And then the next thing is style and reference. And those are fun, easy things to do. There's so many fun things you can. Then you get all your motivation, then you go out and do it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Big thoughts. Damn. Yeah. See, time flew.
Yeah.
2 hours. Well, wow, 2.5 because we were dealing with technical stuff in the beginning, but yeah. Wow. How do you feel? You have any thoughts?
I feel good. Yeah. I'm grateful, that you want to take the time and kind of work through this with me.
Always.
Again, but this time, we
will do it continually.
This time we're recording it. But yeah, no, I hope that, people can relate to this, and I didn't waste anybody's time. And, but yeah, I am inspired, man. I feel like, my mind was going, honestly, as we were talking about this and talking about potential ideas. I have the ideas in my head, that the most like realistic ones to make and what it would take to make them. I got fired up, and I am, I feel like I'm in a better place, and the accountability part's going to be a big thing. So I appreciate you, taking the time and holding me accountable, and I hope everybody has someone like that, if they're lucky enough.
Yeah. Well, I love you, and it's my honor, and it's also like my love language to give this to you. So, and I hope it helps. But yeah, I think the real key, as you mentioned, is just feeling that fire, feeling excited, feeling elated. It's painful to make these things. So just having that power and that passion and that motivation to do great things and to be inspired to do them is a true blessing. And you're the one that has to do all the hard work and has to put the focus in and has to make the sacrifices and all these kind of things. But Yeah. So I think a good summary is finding the fuel, the true fuel, your fuel, the one that is the one that will be there when nothing else is there. So the true fuel, and then removing all abstractions. So and acknowledging when an abstraction happens. Same importance of acknowledging excuses. Excuses are connected to abstractions. So removing your excuses from the situation, and then accountability. So it's just being accountable, and accountability is directly connected to focus, which is directly connected to time management. And they're all this multi-structured things, and not one of them is more important than the other. They're all important at different levels, but they're all connected. They're all important. So yeah, it's a big task, but it's a big thing to ask. So, and you have your homework, you have your energy journal. These are all things I never even
came up with these terms.
Yeah, I mean, how do you know something unless you go in there and you have these, exercises basically, and you discover them. I'm sure before us and beyond us, there's been thousands and thousands of people who have this very similar conversation in different cultures, trying to discover how to make things and be a better version of themselves. And it's just removing all those things and just applying them. So fantastic. Well,
thank you, man.
Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. We're going to have you back on and see where everything goes. Hold you accountable. I'm lighting the fire on you. I know you were nervous to do this, and I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of you for publicly doing this, sharing your journey. I know that this is very applicable to 99% of the people listening to this, because this is why we listen to this podcast, is because we like to hear the struggle and know we're not alone, so that we can all grow and gain and progress and be better together. That's really the goal. Hopefully, if it's done right.
Out of respect to myself, like I'll follow through. I mean, and out of respect to everyone that listened and took the time, and your time, like the pressure is on, and I asked for it, and it's necessary. Okay. So,
I love it.
Yeah. I'm excited to see where we go.
Yeah. It's going to be fantastic. Big love to our families and friends and everybody listening. And, excited.
Thank you, man. And thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.